So my mom's always told me that she really wants me to journal, like have a diary. And I've agreed with her. I think it would be very useful. And I always told her, yeah, I'll do it eventually. I do enough writing as it is. I can go back to my Google Docs and find stuff. But recently I found a way where I can actually have a practical way to journal. And I do it based off of astrological transits. I talk about what's going on in my life and what I expect for the next transit. And whenever the next transits come up, I give an update. And then years later, I can look back at what was happening and have a reminder for study and for the future, for my kids to see or whatever. And it's good practice. And so I've been spending a lot of time recently studying astrology, obviously, but how to predict, which is what astrology is about, right? So in regards to prediction, the most important thing is dashas and transits. And the dasha is basically the season of your life, and the transit is like the weather. And so your dasha is predicted. There's one based off of like your ascendant and your moon, but mainly it's based off of the moon. And so the position of your moon, the degree is the position between the two signs it's in. And that's where your dasha started. And so when you're born into the middle of a certain dasha. And then you get dates for when the dasha goes over different planets and stuff. So the Mahadasha is the main dasha where there's one planet, and it can last 7 years, 18 years, depending on the planet. And then there's the sub-dasha called the Antardasha, and that's a period within a period. And then so you might have like a Sun Mahadasha, then you have Sun Moon, then you have Sun Mars, and then etc. And then you have like a Prantar Dasha, which is like a sub, which is made more for like weekly predictions or monthly stuff like that, depending on the length of each period. And so the dasha is basically like the season of your life. And for something to be long-lasting, permanent, it has to involve a dasha. And then when it comes to the transits, it's like the weather. So let's say you don't have any dasha activating any house related to relationships. You could have, for example, like Jupiter go over one of the houses related to a relationship, and you could get into a relationship, but it's not going to turn into a marriage because the season doesn't say that. It could turn into like a relationship that maybe lasts a year. That's how long Jupiter's going to be there. But unless you transition into a dasha before you break up, then it's going to probably fizzle out at some point. Or if it's a Mars transit, it might be like a quick affair that only lasts a week or 6 weeks or something, or Venus. So you have to have dasha plus transit to get like a real powerful external outcome. So every planet rules a certain sign or two signs. So the sun rules Leo, the moon rules Cancer, Mars is Scorpio and Aries, for example. And so let's say you're in a sun dasha. Where the sun is placed and the sun's natural sign, Leo, those are the houses that are activated. So let's say your first house is Aries and you have sun in the 4th house, and then the 5th house is naturally going to be Aries because it's the 5th sign, and you count as, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, the 5th house. So if it was Taurus ascendant, then your 6th house would be, no, that's wrong. Your 3rd house would be Leo. And then so let's say you're Aries ascendant, you have sun in the 4th house, your 5th house is naturally Leo. So if you're in a sun Mahadasha, your 4th house is activated because the sun is sitting there. And then the 5th house is activated because that's Leo. And then also every planet naturally aspects 7 positions from where it's sitting. So if sun is in the 4th, that means it's aspecting the 10th. You might be like, oh, that's 6 positions. No, the first position you count as 1. So it's automatically aspecting the 10th house. So that means the 10th is also being activated. So the 4th, 5th, and 10th will be active during this dasha. And then if you have an antardasha of, let's say, sun, moon, wherever Cancer is located is going to get activated naturally. And then wherever the moon is going to be activated. And then the aspect of that. And then so what if you don't have any dashas activating your 5th or 7th house, which is what's related to relationships? They say your 1st house because it's you. But let's just talk about your 5th and 7th house. Let's say you don't have any dasha related to that. for 10 years. Well, the thing is, it's probably not gonna be longer than 5-8 years, because the Antar dashas are gonna activate it at some point. You're probably not gonna have a long-term relationship in that point, at that point in your life. If a transit comes like Saturn, it could last for 2.5 years. It could bring you a serious relationship, but it's not gonna be like super lovey-dovey. It's gonna be more serious, because Saturn is a more cold planet. It brings harshness and reality. But if it's Jupiter, you might have a good relationship for a year or something, but it's the weather, it passes. So these are the things you have to look at. And then whenever you get into a relationship with someone else, like, they also have to have the right activations. If you're in a dasha for a relationship and the other person isn't, but they have a transit for it, you can expect that, and well, you can look at the future and see what's gonna happen. You can expect that it's probably not going to last. And is it guaranteed? Not necessarily, because there might be things that you aren't considering in your prediction. But it's good to look at this, look at everything in the past and line it up so that you can see why everything happened. And then you can look in the future and then expect, like, okay, around this time, the highest activation. So if you want a relationship, then you look at the point where it's the most active, and that's when you're going to go out the most to socialize, because that's when your karma is going to be ripe for that. And so I basically know, I can basically guarantee when I'm gonna find my life partner. And for me, I have an activation that's gonna be like almost guaranteed for that. And I don't know if I should say when it's gonna be, but because I know it's not now, anybody I meet during this time, I don't expect to be that person. So doesn't mean I'm not willing to get into anything. It's just that I know I don't expect it to last longer than that amount of time. And so you can look at the dashas and transits for every area of your life, not just relationships, but that's what people want to hear about the most. But so if you want to learn how to do this yourself, well, first you go to my Instagram, you go to the chart calculator generator, and you use that. You don't look it up online, because you're probably going to get the wrong link. Even if you use the same website, you're probably going to get the wrong link. So use the one in my bio only. And you have to have exact birth time and location. And when you look at your ascendant, find your ascendant degrees in the bottom. Not the bottom where all the other charts are, but like it'd be ASC, sun, moon. When it says ASC, there's gonna be a number between 0 and 30. If it's close to 0, if it's close to 30, that means you're on the cusp. It means it's about to transition into the next sign. And so if that's the case, if your birth time is off by like 2 minutes, your entire chart's gonna change. And so if that's the case, it's not gonna be so simple. You're gonna have to compare both of the charts and find out what makes more sense for you. But the dashas will still be very close, because 1 minute birth time will change the dasha activation by a few days or something. But it's still generally close, but then the houses are gonna be all wrong. So you have to get your chart, and then you look up Vedic, not Western, not tropical, sidereal Vedic only, Jyotish, the planetary rulership. So what signs does Mars rule? Aries, Scorpio. What moon is Cancer, sun is Leo, Jupiter, Sagittarius and Pisces, Mercury is Virgo, Gemini, Saturn is Capricorn, Aquarius, etc. And so you find that, you find the aspects. Every planet aspects 7 positions away. And then Mars, Jupiter and Saturn, Rahu and Ketu have special aspects. They aspect additional planets, additional sign placements, which you'll have to look up to see yourself. And so you can look at I'll also put this in my bio for the transit calculator to find out when all the planets are changing signs. You also see the degrees of the planets. And then so how you see the specific activation of certain events is you look at when the planet is going 3 degrees over a sign, over another planet. So for example, if you have Venus at 15 degrees, whenever K2 goes between 3 degrees, either 18 degrees or 12 degrees, it's probably going to activate some karmic relationship. It's probably going to bring someone into your life. Well, the thing is, it has to be activated by Dasha too, for it to be like an external event. It doesn't have to be, but it's more likely. So if you have Dasha activating the house of Venus, wherever it is, and you have K2 going over that, then it's likely that you're going to get into a karmic relationship that's temporary, that might result in them being attached or something like that, unattached. And it might be one-sided, or there's going to be some issue with it, and there's something to resolve because it's detoxing your Venus karma, basically. Or if Rahu goes within 3 degrees before and after, sometime during that, you're probably going to get into a relationship where it's like you're obsessed about this person, and you're delusional about them, and you're projecting onto them, thinking they're somebody that they're not. So these are how you check these things. So it's good to go on KRS Astrology's YouTube channel and watch his transit videos. For example, like with this upcoming K2 transit in Leo, if you have any planets in a fire sign or Leo, then it's going to get activated with this transit. So like he says, if you have Sun in Leo, which I do, I can tell you the signs of my planets. I have Jupiter and Saturn in Taurus. I have Rahu in Gemini, K2 in Sagittarius. I have Mars in Cancer. I have Sun and Mercury in Leo. And I have Venus and Moon in Virgo. And so if you have any planets in Leo, you got to watch this video. And if you have any fire signs, you also got to watch this video. So what he said is basically when, ooh, lots of snakes here. That's probably a fine one. I don't know. Whenever K2 goes over Leo, he says it's like, it'll probably give you a lot of attention, raise your status, but if you're not humble, you're going to get fucked. And so whenever my K2 is within 3 degrees of my Leo, of my sun, I'm going to have to be very careful, to be very humble during that time. Don't allow myself to be arrogant at all. And so, yeah, it's good to know what the weather is so you can prepare for it, the season, you know, have your stuff ready. And so you can minimize the negative karmic impact, so you can learn the lesson before it's forced upon you. You can willingly consent to whatever it is rather than being forced. So like if K2 is going to take away your ego, it's like, okay, give up your ego instead of having it forced off of you, you know? So you can lessen the suffering and increase the benefit. And basically the planets are called like grahas, and it basically means like they influence you, they pull on you. I don't remember what the vocabulary is, the terms is, but it basically pulls in the karma of that planet, whichever is out of alignment. So whatever flaws you have, any on alignment, whenever that planet goes over that sign or activates it through dasha or transit or aspect, it's going to reveal those flaws. And then so if you already know what the flaws are, you can start working on it ahead of time, and you can surrender when it happens so that you don't have to resist and make it more difficult than it needs to be. So I'm going to be making more videos soon. This is just a basic rundown of what you need to know for the dashas and transits in order to make predictions. And then so all the links you need for the degrees of the planet, the calculating the degrees of the planets, finding the transit signs and dates, and the calculator will be in my bio.